Good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of so much news. Mary Margaret Olahan joins us at 4 o'clock today from the Daily Signal. We talked to her about the Hamas surrection yesterday at the United States Capitol, pushed along by people like Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. We await all of the prosecutions for everyone involved. The time in solitary confinement. Luke Rosiak will be with us at 4:30 from the Daily Wire. The latest on the Department of Homeland Security having a former spokeswoman for the Palestinians on board who's been charged with vetting asylum seekers. What was that about? Luke Rosiak dug it up, and now it's getting attention nationwide. Matt Rosendale, the congressman, will be with us at 5 o'clock today. In the midst of all of this drama around the speaker race, and in the midst of Joe Biden's push to use Israel's suffering to enrich a country that enriched his family. It's all really happening, and you can really join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
What do you think about this resolution to harm McHenry?
I think that I'm against Speaker Light. I'm against Bud Light. I believe it is a constitutional desecration to not elect a Speaker of the House. We need to stay here until we elect a Speaker. And if someone can't get the votes, we need to go on to the next person. But twisting and torturing the Constitution to empower a temporary Speaker is having a Speaker Light that is not constitutionally contemplated, is deeply infirm, and I will do everything possible to stop it.
Yeah, plans today floated by House Republicans to temporarily empower Patrick McHenry, the Speaker pro tem, and give him the powers of the Speaker of the House until January, while the House continues to debate amongst themselves over who should actually become the Speaker, or at least allow for Jim Jordan to whip more votes. Right now, Jim Jordan is the Speaker designee, as they say, and the drama continues here. It's honestly, this story changes by the minute. And that's why I want to start today with an interview. I've got Henry Rodgers standing by. I know he's been talking to everybody in Congress about this. He's the chief national correspondent for the Daily Caller, just off the phone with more people. Henry, what are you hearing, sir?
Oh, man, it is a complete disaster on the Hill right now. Another day of just a complete mess. So Republicans just left a conference meeting where they were talking about this resolution. Supposedly, lawmakers were screaming at each other. At one point, it was reported that McCarthy told Matt Gaetz very aggressively to sit down while they were shouting at each other. So things aren't looking too good. But actually, which I found interesting out of all of this is that despite David Joyce's, resolution to empower Patrick McHenry, the Speaker pro temp, it looks like everyone in House leadership, Republican House leadership, is kind of sticking with Jordan. You have Scalise, you have Stefanik, you have McCarthy, you have others coming out saying we're not in support of this resolution, and we're gonna continue to back Jim Jordan on the House floor. So right now, it doesn't really seem like the House Republicans have a leader.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a group of leadership that is getting together and they're kind of actually holding the line behind Jordan. It sounds like now it's not everybody who's doing that. Of course, you have deflections, other people who are ready to move on to McHenry or moderate people. But the general consensus seems to be still behind Jordan. So
yes.
We'll see what happens there.
So yesterday in the second round of votes, he lost 22 Republicans, and he can't stand to lose more than 4. He's got to have a very few defections in order to become Speaker of the House. And you and I spoke yesterday on this subject, and one of the things we talked about was this idea that is it possible that the reason these 22 are not supporting Jordan right now is because they're angry at Matt Gaetz, not Jordan himself, but instead Matt Gaetz for having unseated Kevin McCarthy in the first place. I know you've done some more reporting in the last day on this subject. What did you learn?
Yeah, so I think that was a great idea and topic that was brought up, and it made me want to reach out to some lawmakers, and I did, and a lot of them were open. I think I talked to at least 7 or 8 lawmakers about it who who completely, said that they do believe that these 22 holdouts are voting the way they are voting against Jordan because of Gaetz, and they think it's going to be a victory for him. You have people like Nancy Mace, who told me just today, and again, let's remember for the audience here that Nancy Mace was kind of a surprise no vote. She came out against McCarthy, and that was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. So now you have Nancy Mace telling me today that she believes that these 22 people who won't vote for Jordan are doing it just to spite Matt Gaetz, which is really petty stuff if that is true, for House Republicans to be holding, the speakership over, one person, Matt Gaetz.
Yes.
That says a lot. But again, there were if you read the story on thedailycaller.com, there were 7 or 8 other members who said the exact same thing. And, I gave those 22 members the opportunity to respond to the inquiry and say, do you guys have a problem with Matt Gaetz? Is Matt Gaetz the reason why you're not voting for Jordan? Is that even a possibility? And, only 5 of those 22 offices responded to my inquiry, and they were given ample time and a deadline. So I think that kind of tells you where those people are at.
Yeah, only 5 responding, and they sent previous statements, and they also denied that their vote against Jordan had something to do with Gaetz. But as you point out, a number of the members who are behind closed doors hearing all of these arguments saying that it is everything to do with Matt Gaetz. Congressman Andy Biggs telling you, I've been told by a good number of people that their objection isn't personal to Jim. It is that voting in Jordan is perceived to be rewarding Matt Gaetz and the rest of the 8. Nancy Mace saying to you that she believes Republican members who, quote, oppose Jim Jordan are doing it, quote, purely to spite Matt Gaetz. The American people want a speaker who will be honest and represent them, not business as usual in Washington. It's disgraceful for a number of elected officials, many of them in safe GOP districts, to oppose Jim Jordan purely to spite Matt Gaetz, she said. Congressman Bob Good said that the GOP has no alternative and that while he can't speak for the 22 members who oppose Jordan, he believes there are members voting against Jordan who are, quote, disappointed about the fact that the party has to elect another speaker. And one more piece here, just to give, if you're looking for evidence directly from the mouths of some of the 22, here's Congressman John Rutherford of Florida. This was just a few days ago. He was asked about all of this by a reporter, and he wasn't shy about saying, yeah, this is Gaetz's fault. The fact that McCarthy was voted out is enough for me to decide I'm not supporting Jim Jordan here. Listen to this.
You are on Jim Jordan right now.
Okay, where I'm at right now is since the folks that want to follow the majority, which is the rule, we should follow the majority. Kevin McCarthy had 96%. 4% took him out, joining with the Democrats.
McCarthy was voted out by the House rules. No, nothing improper done there. And then he took his name out of contention to be speaker again.
Now we're in conference where the Democrats don't get the vote, and I'm back with Kevin McCarthy. Since he, out of all of the folks that have thrown their hat in the ring, he is head and shoulders above the rest in the majority that he's able to put together. It was 96%.
And you're a no on Jordan on the floor right now.
I'm a no on allowing Matt Gaetz in the other 7 to win by putting their individual in as speaker.
Hello, anybody listening to this? There's a lot of nudniks in right-wing media right now who have no idea what they're talking about on this subject. You have these people who are sitting here going, the only reason I'm voting against this guy is because of Matt Gaetz. That's it. It's all about Gaetz. It's all this petty grievance. And you can explore his rationale. You can say it was a petty grievance. You can say whatever you want about that situation. But the reality is he negotiated his way in the first place. McCarthy only got the speakership by the grace of some of these people who voted against him in the end. And when he didn't live up to their expectations and keep his promises, they voted him out using the powers that he put in place as a condition of his ability to become speaker. That's just true. Now, you can hate the outcome of all this all you want. But the reality here is now is you can't point your finger at Matt Gaetz and go, that guy's a clown, and then set up a circus tent. You can't do that because that's what's happening right now. You got 22 Republicans who are saying, no, I'm not doing this because I don't want – this is what they really don't want. They don't want conservatives across the country to walk away and go, hey, Matt Gaetz actually got me something good. to look back on this and say, man, this was kind of a win in the end, even if you disagree with Gaetz doing it in the first place. If you look back at it and go, well, that was a gamble, but it paid off. If you say that, they will be furious because their petty grievance is more important than getting the House back on track.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly, Vince. And I think that John Rutherford in that statement and in that audio that you just played, if I were to listen to that again, it sounds like he doesn't give a damn about his own constituents, and he cares more about some petty fight on the Hill with one man. When the rules are the rules, the votes are the votes. What happened happened. I think it's your damn job to elect a Speaker of the House.
Yeah, of course, totally. So. I think that the outlines of this are becoming more and more clear by the minute. At the moment, though, what comes next is totally unclear, which is, are they going to remember, McCarthy went 15 rounds before he became Speaker. At the moment, it seems like we're headed towards another round of votes on whether or not Jim Jordan becomes Speaker. Is that where we are at the moment, Henry?
That's correct. They're going to go for another round of votes. Now, the timing of that is still unclear, but they are going to do another round of votes, it sounds like. So, I'm assuming right now there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes whipping for these 22 members, and the next vote will be very telling to see if that number dwindles, if they pick up votes. I think that's going to be a big one for the conference.
Yeah, it's coming at a critical time. I mean, you've got there's this effort afoot right now by Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell, and I'm going to talk about this more coming up the next half hour. Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell to try and ram through all sorts of funding priorities on the back of Israel's tragedy, to take advantage of Israel to fund all of their pet projects right now. And there is at the moment, no Speaker of the House to issue any unified statement back against that. And it's one of the many things that needs to get done, and soon. Henry Rodgers, thank you for the updates. We will check back in with you as these things develop. Thank you, sir.
Thank you as always, Ben.
That's Henry Rodgers. Again, literally, we weren't even planning on having Henry on, but I'm talking with Henry just minutes before the show, and he says he just got off the phone with all these guys. And I said, well, I got to get you on. We got to talk about this because, honestly, this is a very live story right now. Because just an hour ago, we were being told, Patrick McHenry is going to be empowered for the rest of the year. And there was some debate over whether or not, it's kind of a weird situation, whether or not if that happened, if Patrick McHenry became the empowered Speaker pro tem, who's actually in charge of the Republicans in the House? Because Jim Jordan is the Speaker designee and is indicating that he still wants to become Speaker, that he's still going to be whipping votes in the months ahead if this was the arrangement. And so I see people like Brendan Buck. He was a former top aide to people like John Boehner and Paul Ryan. He says, well, that means he's in charge of the party. It doesn't even matter if they empower Patrick McHenry. Jim Jordan would still be in charge of the party in the House. So again, if they empowered Patrick McHenry, it could be kind of a weird way that Jim Jordan does actually take control of the House Republicans and move them forward. But at the moment, that's not what's happening. Right now, apparently not enough votes for that. So this goes to some third round at some point where Jim Jordan will try again. Let's take a phone call here. We've got Bill calling in from Linden, line 3. Bill, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes,
sir.
I
got the answer on this speaker thing.
Oh, do you? Oh, thank goodness, because we got to resolve this, Bill. What do we do here?
Oh, man, it's simple. Gaetz, just in the next round, he votes against Jordan. And subsequent rounds, he just keeps doing that until these spiteful 20 or whatever, get the message. And, of course, at that point, they got to vote for Jordan, right?
They got to do whatever. They got to do the opposite of whatever Matt Gaetz does. So if Gaetz comes out and is like, hey, I'm not voting for Jordan, I don't even like that guy, then Jim Jordan will be the next Speaker of the House. This is not a bad idea. This actually could work. It's not that much of a gamble for Matt Gaetz. He could just vote against the guy.
Yeah.
That would be pretty good.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. Something's got to happen here. Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
Clever idea. Here's Jim Jordan just moments ago with an update on what comes next.
At this moment,
so I'll just say this: we made the pitch to members on the resolution as a way to lower the temperature.
Yeah, that is, in other words, to allow Patrick McHenry to be empowered in essence as Speaker without actually being Speaker. So Jordan's like, look, we put that forward. We wanted to bring down the temperature and
get back to work. we decided that wasn't where we're going to go. I'm still running for Speaker, and I plan to go to the floor and get the votes and win this race. But I want to go talk with a few of my colleagues. Particularly, I want to talk with the 20 individuals who voted against me so that we can move forward and begin to work for the American people.
And he walks away. No other updates there. As he walks away from the press, didn't answer any other questions. So it looks like, again, it's behind the doors wrangling here in order to try and get these votes. We go now to Jeff, who's calling in from Hagerstown, line 2. Jeff, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thanks for taking my call, Vince. With all the rhetoric, all this stuff that's going on as of late, I'm talking about the whole Capitol Hill thing as a spectrum.
Yeah,
they seem to lose track of what their job is to do, and that is to serve the American people. We're getting kicked to the curb, and they are the hate. Now, I understand that Democrats and Republicans do it differently. I get that. But their hate for one another right now is making the people of this country suffer. And in the meantime, our world enemies are chomping at the bit, waiting for things just to crumble and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I've got.
No, that's right. And this is, so what you're saying, Jeff, is that this is deeply counterproductive. This isn't helpful to you and me, and the petty grievances have no place in this process. And with such a high stakes and important thing to get done.
That's absolutely what I'm saying. It's totally ridiculous. It's anti-productive, like you mentioned, and it's not serving the American people, what these guys and women are paid to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
That's where we're at.
We are.
Man.
We are. That's exactly where we are, Jeff. Look, we're at what, 34 trillion or so. The numbers just keep mounting. I almost cringe to look at our debt every time I have to check back in on it. And that means that, they don't even have to add new taxes. You understand what inflation is, right? It's a tax. It's the government just paying for all of its profligate spending on your back. You can't afford stuff because they already stole your money. Over and over and over again. Biden has plans to do it again, actually. He wants to give a big speech on that subject tonight. We'll give you a preview of it that you're not going to hear anywhere else. We'll break it all apart. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Mary Margaret Olohan joins us at the top of the hour from the Daily Signal. We'll talk about the insurrection yesterday at the Cannon House office building. And then there were some protests last night at the Israeli embassy as the left keeps breathing life into a lie that the Israeli government is responsible for bombing a hospital in Gaza. Luke Rosiak will be with us today at 4:30 from the Daily Wire with some reporting on the anti-Israel forces within the United States government. And Matt Rosendale, the congressman, is here at 5 o'clock on another busy news day. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Take a phone call. We've got Kathy calling in from Vienna, line 2. Kathy, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
I appreciate you covering all this about the speakers. I believe you were explaining to the audience not too long ago about how, as these 20 Republicans who voted for all this inflation with all those tremendous spending bills that we had, the trillions, and they're responsible for this inflation and having us pay higher taxes and bankrupting our nation. It's these 20 Republicans. And we need to please remind everybody that these are ones that went with the Democrats to spend those bills. And I think, and I'm not fooled that Kevin McCarthy, just because he's voting for Jim Jordan, he's not behind this. I'm sure he doesn't want to upset the people back in Kern County where he's from, that he's really part of the deep state. I'm just furious about this. We need conservative leadership right now, and Jim Jordan is it. And why they don't listen to the people?
Yes.
They're playing this, we're upset about, Matt Gaetz. That's BS. That's BS. They want
all
the money. They want the money from the big PAC.
Well, Kathy, my hunch and suspicion is always that, but I think it's almost It's even worse as we learn some of the details here that the Gaetz thing is animating so many of these people for the pettiest of possible reasons. I don't think that that's a farce. I really do think that they're angry that not only did they take away the money is essential here. The guy who was giving them money, Kevin McCarthy, the big fundraiser in the House, the guy that they felt like they had a good deal with, he's gone because of the efforts of Matt Gaetz and a couple of others, and now they want to hold him personally responsible. They really want to hurt him because of that. And the last thing they want is for you to walk away, Kathy, and say, well, isn't that great what Gaetz did because we got Jim Jordan, a better Speaker of the House. They don't want that to be the outcome.
Well, they need to look. They say, well, our country's in the dire straits. We're at a point of no return. And if they like those Democrats better, I'm glad they're being outed. And if it wasn't for the 30 Republicans.
All right. Kathy's signal for some reason is breaking up.
Right now.
Kathy, I'm so sorry. Your signal broke up just a little bit at the end, but I think we got the gist of what you're getting at here. We have a country that needs to be saved, and we need responsible adults in Congress.
We need some responsible people who still believe in the Constitution, American people, and do the right thing. This is ridiculous,
isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that call from Vienna. David is calling in from Silver Spring. David, you are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm good, sir. What's on your mind?
Good. Hey, quick question. With all the back and forth on the Speaker of the House, God forbid something happened to the two brain trusts we have in the number 1 and number 2 slot. Who's up on deck in terms of line of succession? What's going on?
I hate to tell you what the answer to that question is. The third in line. So as you rightly know, there's the President of the United States, and then next in the line of succession is the Vice President, Kamala Harris. And then normally it would be the Speaker of the House, but guess what? We don't have one. So then it falls to the President pro temp of the United States Senate. In other words, Senator Patty Murray is actually the next in line for the presidency. So David, in other words, you're concerned about that element of this as well, given how close the Speaker is to becoming president.
Exactly, and I have no idea who that person is you just mentioned. So
Patty
are we
Murray.
jumping out of the frying pan into the fire?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good idea to leave that arrangement in place. Thank you, David. It is a good question. Kenny in Catlick calling in line 3. Kenny, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. But in my opinion, no matter what kind of creative narrative they come up with to explain all this away, it's just very simple. I mean, we are actually witnessing the uniparty on full display. They just don't want conservatives running the Congress, the House of Representatives. They just don't want it, so they're coming up with all these crazy narratives. But it's just a uniparty on full display, in my opinion.
Well, that's definitely the case, and I probably owe you a full analysis of the 22 here, but one of the commonalities we typically see with the people who are causing the most trouble are the ones who vote for Ukraine funding, for instance, without any sort of oversight whatsoever of how that money's being spent. That typically is one of those signals of what you refer to as the uniparty. This is where both parties come together in such a way that they're doing something that the American people don't really want, but the members of Congress of both parties advance anyway, and at our expense.
It always, just real quick, it always seems to advance on a one-way narrative. It never seems to advance, in our way, the Republican side.
Right.
There's always some sort of backroom scheme or deal that even when we're in power, it still seems to go the Democrats' way. And
yes.
People are kind of catching on and seeing it.
Totally right. And by the way, I know that I just want to make it crystal clear. This thing about Matt Gaetz is not something that these Republicans are running around saying, meaning the 22. They're by and large not saying it. I did have a clip or two of them indicating it in public, but for the most part, this is not a contrived narrative to try and cover something up. I'm exposing the role that this Matt Gaetz thing is playing to point out how petty and stupid the whole process is.
I'm kind of referring to all their little creative stories as to why they can't, rally around Jim Jordan.
Right.
So they seem so petty because they're not real.
Yeah, totally.
They just simply don't want a conservative running the House of Representatives. There's no other way to slice it.
There's a lot of that going on, that's for sure. Kenny, thank you very much. Let me see. I do want to get to what Kenny was talking about, this kind of uniparty thing that's going on. because tonight we get a big address from Joseph Robinette Biden from the Oval Office. Now, I don't know how they do these Oval Office addresses with him. This will be the second one. I presume they have to roll like an 80-inch television into the Oval Office so that he can actually read the prompter. One of the problems he has in his advanced years is that he is incapable of reading a normal-sized teleprompter. It's the reason why they typically don't do events like this from inside of the executive mansion. They'll actually send him across the street to one of the office buildings, a part of the White House complex, to sit in front of a gigantic screen where he can read the words. Remember the early, like the fake Oval Office set that he kept doing events from about a year or so ago? And people kept saying, why is he doing events from the fake Oval Office? Why would you need to do that? He's got the real Oval Office. It's not like he has to be a wannabe here, does he? And the answer was the size of the teleprompter. That was the explanation for that. They just needed a space where he could read it. So tonight they're going to accommodate him somehow. Maybe he'll have somebody saying it into his ear. It'll be like a horrific game of telephone where he's just going to get it wrong as he's speaking into the camera. But either way, big speech tonight. And what will that speech be about? Well, the New York Times explains it this way. In a piece they published first thing this morning, Biden to deliver Oval Office address as he seeks aid for Israel and Ukraine. I'm sorry. What? For Israel and Ukraine. President Biden will deliver a primetime speech on Thursday about the war in Ukraine and the terror attacks in Israel as his administration prepares to call on Congress to approve tens of billions of dollars in military aid for the two embattled nations. Do you see what's happening right now? Do you see how this is going? You know what's going to happen here. This is going to be a single piece of legislation. This is not separate pieces of legislation. They're not separate considerations. It's not putting it in front of Congress and saying, hey, I need you to decide on what we're going to do for Israel. What, if anything, more we need to do for Israel? What, if anything, more we need to do for Ukraine? It's not going to be like that. They're going to tether the two things together. The Biden family has become filthy rich through its relationships in Ukraine, through its very corrupt relationships in Ukraine. Filthy rich. And here is Joe Biden now exploiting a terrorist attack in Israel, the suffering of so many Israelis, thousands killed, to justify cutting another check to Ukraine. This is not a small one. We're talking tens of billions of dollars. The address, the New York Times says, will mark the second time that Mr. Biden has delivered formal remarks from the Oval Office since becoming president. In June, he spoke from behind the Resolute desk about a bipartisan agreement to avoid defaulting on the nation's debt, an agreement that Republicans in the House later abandoned. In Thursday's speech, Mr. Biden will address the American response to the two grave struggles he said threaten democratic stability across the globe. The war that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, and the one that started this month after the brutal assault by Hamas on Israel on October 7th. A senior White House official said Mr. Biden will seek to present the American people a broadly framed explanation for why two wars, half a world away, are critical to the national security of the United States. The official, who asked not to be identified in order to discuss planning for the president's speech, said the purpose of the address is for the president to reflect on the events of recent weeks in Israel and the 600 days that Ukraine has been fighting since Russia's invasion. The White House official says that Mr. Biden is not expected to reveal specific details about the congressional funding request. Why would he do that? In an address to the American people? Why would he tell us about the specifics of the request to Congress? The administration will provide more details on Friday after the speech, after he's done speaking to the people. In a quieter place where fewer people see it, they will share the details. Jake Sullivan, the president's national security advisor, said this week that the request for aid to Israel would be made alongside another request for more military equipment for Ukraine, which has been struggling to take back territory that Russia seized in the 20 months since the war began, says the New York Times. The president has been clear. He is going to Congress with a package of funding for Ukraine as well as continued support for Israel, Mr. Sullivan said Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation program. Now, Biden is not alone in this push. Guess who's helping him out? That's right. The turtle himself, Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is helping this guy out. Punchbowl News with this report tonight. When President Biden addresses the nation tonight, he won't just be talking about the war in Israel. Biden will use the Oval Office speech to make a broader case for his forthcoming supplemental funding request. The request will touch on a number of national security priorities from Europe to the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific. Oh, you see? Everything's getting lumped in. So Israel gets attacked, and now Biden is going to use their suffering for big spending packages for Europe, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific. It's all going to be included. The package is expected to come in at around $100 billion. $100 billion. Let me remind everyone, this is money we do not have. This is money that will be printed. It's not even a close call. There's not enough receipts coming in through taxpayers in order to afford this. $100 billion to be printed in order to sustain this. It's all coming together. Senators from both parties see the White House's announcement, a presidential address on the U.S. response to Hamas's attacks on Israel and Russia's assault on Ukraine, as a necessary effort to show the violent conflicts are part of a broader struggle. Oh, it's a global war now. They really are leading us into World War III, aren't they? It's a part of a broader struggle. It's not just between Hamas and Israel. No, it's a part of a world war. They're not going to use those words, but that's the pitch they're going to make. That's what Biden's going to make tonight. So in a way, isn't this it's kind of scary to think about it. An Oval Office address is a predicate to world war. Quote, if Putin's successful in Ukraine, he'll keep going, Senator Lindsey Graham tells us. It'll be a green light for China to attack Taiwan. And if Iran comes out of this mass attack on Israel stronger, not weaker, then there will be more coming from Iran. So the outcome of these conflicts matter greatly to our national security, says Lindsey Graham, who has never met a war that he doesn't want to spend money on, but not subject his own well-being to. Biden's speech also comes a day after Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell made a similar argument, who was just asked about the effort to pair the two into, you guessed it, one funding package. McConnell says that the wars in Israel and Ukraine are, quote, interconnected. McConnell has been critical of Biden's slow transfer of American weapons to Ukraine. He's been critical there. But he and the president are on the same page when it comes to the importance of, ready, U.S. support for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. So now we're gonna pump out money, 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 money. And that's what tonight's speech is to be about. Although Biden is going to make an emotional appeal. He's not going to give us specifics. Those will come later. Don't you worry about specifics. The stuff we do for the American people, you just get to watch Biden fall asleep on national television. That's your treat. We go to the phones now. Val calling in from Manassas, line 4. Val, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Oh, thanks, Vince, for taking my call. Let's be real and not insult the American public here. There is no way that Grandpa Sleepy Joe can carry on and have a conversation on that speech tonight about all those topics you listed. He is incapable of doing that. So it'll be one of his multiple body doubles filling in for him because we'll be able to compare the chins from yesterday.
The body double theory. That's funny. He's unbelievable. I was so naive. I thought they were just going to pump him full of drugs like they do occasionally. Like they zap him a little bit and they're like, all right, get out there. And he's got like a good 15 seconds of being awake before he goes back to his old tired self. Oh,
absolutely. This has been pre-recorded. And he's going to be, by the time that thing airs tonight, he's going to be tucked away in bed with his glass of milk.
Yeah, you know something? This is a great theory, Val, that this whole thing will be pre-recorded, that it won't actually be live. And look, here's the evidence to support the theory. The White House often releases videos of Joe Biden in very controlled circumstances, then they post them to the internet, and they are heavily edited. They do all sorts of things like they'll change the color temperature on his face. They'll try and warm him up because he looks too cadaverish. They want to make him look like he's alive, right? So they warm him up a bit. And then they'll do these heavy jump cuts throughout the remarks so that they're basically stitching together broken sentences to make it seem like he's saying something coherent. That's been done plenty of times by the White House already. If we find out later tonight or tomorrow that, actually they taped it in advance and then they, quote, aired it live, I won't be surprised, and I'll give Val from Manassas all the credit in the world. Val, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Although, again, the body double thing, which always amuses me, I'm telling you, people, he got a facelift. He got a terrible, terrible bout of plastic surgery. Go check the Washington Examiner. They did a great report on this. I think it was 2015 on how Biden's plastic surgeon screwed it up so badly he has beard hair growing out of the side of his ear now. So Jill has to shave the ear each morning. It's 3:58.